In the American Statecraft program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, Stephen Wertheim. He wrote a guest essay for the New York Times focused on the Trump administration's approach to foreign policy. It bears this intriguing title: Trump is a situational man in a structural bind. And Stephen, good to see you this morning. Why don't we start right there? What do you mean with that headline?
Well, President Trump wants to be a peacemaker and a unifier, as he said in his inaugural address. I think he's sincere on some level about that intention, but he is a thoroughly situational man, and the United States has positioned itself globally to inherit a world of conflicts. And then we act surprised when it turns out that by placing large numbers of U.S. forces in difficult places, Europe, the Middle East, Asia, simultaneously, it ends up that the United States faces a whole host of challenges and has to defend allies and partners and push back on adversaries. And I think President Trump, who promises peace through strength, he has unconventional instincts on foreign policy, but he has actually never laid out a coherent theory of what he thinks is essential for the United States to defend and what is not. So what he ends up doing is looking at particular situations, trying to, put pressure, put leverage on people, dangle carrots, and hope that that really changes the situation fundamentally. But it's unlikely to do that just through tactics alone.
So, as you say, President Trump has an unconventional view of foreign policy. But one thing he did make clear as he came into office, that he wanted these conflicts to end it and quickly. He went so far as to promise that he would solve the Ukraine-Russia war in one day. That obviously has not happened. So I'm curious, give us your sense as to what you've seen from him is his evolution in that particular war. That he has certainly for a long time given Russia the benefit of the doubt. Lately, he's turned up his rhetoric against Putin, has allowed defensive weapons to keep going to Ukraine. Do you see why? What do you make of that shift? Where do you see it going?
Well, I think any shift with President Trump, particularly on an issue like the war in Ukraine, should not be read as something that will endure long into the future. So that's one thing I make of his first 6 months. Look, he was overconfident coming in that he could end the conflict simply by trying to bring the parties together. I give him credit. There was a taboo that had developed around having serious discussions and diplomacy meant to figure out how this conflict could possibly come to an end. I even think, even though many people were outraged at his administration for taking NATO membership for Ukraine off the table, or saying that Ukraine was very unlikely to be able to liberate all its territory in this war, I think that was not just a concession to Russia, but also a concession to reality. So I think he got the parties a little bit closer to talking seriously about an endgame, and Ukraine and Russia are having direct conversations now about a potential ceasefire. The problem is that the president, keeps getting in his own way by not really appreciating what the parties are after. He set a new 50-day deadline for Vladimir Putin a few weeks ago to make a deal. 50 days is just not going to be enough to resolve this conflict. It takes difficult discussions and an appreciation that Russia thinks that time is on its side, and so something very significant will have to happen for it to be able to make a deal on the terms that both the United States and Ukraine have put forward.
Yeah, many experts believe Russia will only get there if the U.S. substantially increases its assistance to Ukraine, something President Trump, at least so far, not willing to do. The fascinating guest essay is online now for the New York Times. Senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, Stephen Wertheim. Stephen, thank you again.